Hello, my family. My name is Maria Bethencourt, and I want to share my experience of my spontaneous spiritual awakening. On August 25th, 2011, it was a Thursday afternoon. I was standing in the kitchen of the house where I used to live with my partner at the time, and I remember that I was standing in a particular area, and all of a sudden, I felt what I can best describe as a thin thread, like a sewing thread of light go through me. And I remember instantly stopping and thinking, I feel light. But not light as in weight, light as in almost like a switch had been turned within me, like a light switch. And as that thought went through my head, my first feeling that enveloped me was I felt this incredible amount of love, unconditional love. I've never felt any kind of love like that ever in my life before. The closest I've come to that experience was when both times I gave birth to my children, which are now 23 and 22. But I have never experienced on this earth the kind of unconditional love that surrounded me at that moment. And instantly I remember thinking, I feel bliss. And again, never having understood what bliss is, even though I knew the word. Um, so immediately, as I was enveloped in these feelings of unconditional love and bliss, my brain, my mind kicked in. And instantly, my thoughts came in, and I thought, what is this? I have a brain tumor. That was my first thought. I have a brain tumor, and something in my head is touching something else in my head and making me feel these unconditional feelings of love and bliss. But it was at that moment that I realized that it didn't resonate. I didn't think that was it. I didn't feel like that I had a brain tumor. And I knew something had happened. I knew something was happening, but I didn't feel that. And it was also in that moment that I realized I had no fear. And I remember thinking, I have no fear. Well, wow. And I don't think I have a brain tumor. I know I don't have a brain tumor. Doesn't resonate. And so it was almost like I took that idea of a brain tumor and I put it in a Christmas box and I set it to the side because I knew something was happening and that wasn't it. So then my next thought was, I've gone crazy. Because I had been for several several years, had gone through the dark night of my soul, had lost everything. I lost my home, my marriage, all my friends, my money, everything was gone. And I had been hearing things and seeing things, and just my world had become super what I call freaky deaky. And so I thought that I've gone crazy. Finally, I've snapped everything too much. Losing everything and everything that's happened to me these last years has made me nuts. And I remember at that moment thinking, well, if this is going crazy, I'm okay with that. Put me in a corner someplace and just take care of me. I'll be just fine. But once again, that idea, that fear, did not resonate. I did not think I was crazy, and so I did the same thing with that fear as I had with the other one of the brain tumor. I kind of set it aside in a box because I was like, something's happening, um, and that's not it. Now, the amazing thing is that once I set those two fears aside, which, as you imagine, were huge, that thin thread of light that was like a sewing thread expanded. It became like almost like the best I can describe, like a fiber optic cable within me, and it just expanded, and the light inside of me expanded to the tip of my fingers. I could feel my whole body just engulfed within me in light, and this white light. And instantly at that moment, I remembered, and I had this vision of being connected to what I call Father Cosmos, and Mother Earth, the two of them, and I was the light in between. And I remembered that I was a spiritual being having a physical experience. And I shifted instantly. So, and as all that happened, and I was going through this process, which I really don't know how long it took, and I really don't know any of that because it has been since that day that I've lost all sense of time, and began almost immediately to function outside of time. Time didn't exist for me anymore. Um, and it was at that moment that all of a sudden, as all that light engulfed me and these feelings of unconditional love, and that once again, I had a vision, and it was like I was shown my life, and where before my life was like, a puzzle that had been a box of puzzle pieces that had been thrown into the wind and scattered, and I, I had never been able to understand my life and all the pain and suffering that I'd gone through. It was in this moment that all the pictures of that puzzle came together, and I saw my life. And where before I really honestly had thought that my life had been just terrible, horrible, it became like this beautiful picture, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this is my life. It's beautiful. And and I understood, why I was a baby left at a hospital in Argentina. I understood why my adopted dad died when I was 7. I understood why I came to the United States when I was 10. I understood my first marriage and why my first husband committed suicide. I understood why my second marriage ended, why my children were here, and I understood why this was happening. And it was completely out of of all this information that I remember standing there and just being completely amazed and flabbergasted. And then after that happened, and I understood what had happened to my life and why, I received what call my first conscious download. And it's almost like, you know how in many cities they have these elevators that come up from the ground and the doors open like this? Well, it was like my head opened like this. It's kind of creaky. It was like, and I received like all this information, and it was in that moment that I understood the law of attraction and manifestation and quantum physics and the laws of the universe and the 7 hermetic principles and how things worked. All of it just whoosh, it was like a wave. And again, I don't know how long this took. It could have been a second, it could have been an hour. And I was just completely flabbergasted. And so my first thought was to call the one person, her name is Debbie, who is the sister of who was my partner at the time. And we had spoken about reincarnation. I believed in reincarnation, and we had spoken about chakras, but I'd never really understood chakras or energy or any of that. But she had spoken to me about it. She was the first that came to my mind, so I picked up the phone and I called her. And as you can imagine, the conversation, it was like, Debbie, and here's the thing that's really cool about that too, because the universe is always ready to support us, is that she never answers her phone. She is like super duper busy, but don't you know it? She like answered that afternoon right away, and I was like, Debbie, I'm standing in my kitchen and there's light and whoa, and I just like, blah, and just told her everything. And and it was absolute silence on the other end. And I remember again thinking, she's calling the paddy wagon, they're coming to take me away, haha. And even went as far as to thinking, I better unlock the doors because I'd hate for them to break the door to get to me. There's no need. And as all this silence on the other end, I felt her take in her breath and say, oh my God, you have experienced a spontaneous spiritual awakening. And I'm like, what? What's that? And that began for me my path of remembering and awakening. And of course, I remembered also that I am a volunteer, that I am what's called a starseed. And all that really means is that I was tripping the light fantastic in another place when the call went out to help for souls from all areas to come in and help in assisting in this massive shift on this beautiful planet as we expand our consciousness. And so I am a grid worker, and I began doing grid work. I remember also somewhere in there, right after the light went through me, that my thought was, oh, thank God, I've connected to the grid. I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew. And then I had a vision of myself standing on this, like the green matrix from the movie, the green things. And I saw myself with like people coming at me from behind, and mine just like flipping them over and setting them straight in front of me, which is transmuting, and it's what we do. But that is how the language of lights began with me. So since then, I have devoted myself to understanding my awakening and also share my experience. Anyone can look up my writings. I am known as Light Lover 1964, and I am here to assist in this shift of ages. So if you also experience something like this, no, you're not going crazy, and no, you don't have a brain tumor, and no, whatever it is that you are rethinking might be happening to you. None of that is. It's just you are going through your awakening. You are remembering who you are and connecting to your heart to assist in this shift of ages. And so that is my story. I can be reached at lightlover1964@gmail.com. I also have writings at lightlover1964 at wordpress.com. And I am here to assist. If you have any questions, I work with the physical symptoms of the shift, and also with helping to clear emotional, physical, mental, and etheric bodies, because my awakening was so intense and so fast that I experienced everything 10 times faster than anybody that may be going through their path, walking one step at a time long term. Of course, everybody's awakening is their own personal, beautiful path, and this was mine. And so if you feel, or if you've experienced anything like this, in whichever way it is, just know that one, you are not the only one, and two, know that once you connect to your heart, and once the light engulfs you in whichever way that might be, not necessarily like my experience, because again, we are all different souls experiencing awakening in our own way, so why would we duplicate experiences? Just know that as this planet continues to raise the frequency, the consciousness, and the Schumann resonance continues to increase, more and more are going to awaken very fast. And sometimes they might awaken because, they've had a Reiki treatment. I've seen that happen. Other times, aromatherapy, all kinds of different ways to connect to our hearts and remember who we are. And but that's my story. And so I wanted to share. And I think that the best thing that I can share is that, the path of awakening can be very difficult, especially as we go through our information stage, where we open our eyes and see what things are, and the truth of what's been happening that we have been blinded to, and have been unable to see. But once we begin that process, it quickly accelerates, and everyone does get to the other end of the tunnel in their own way, some faster than others, but ultimately we all follow our heart and shine our light. So follow yours and shine your light, and I wish you a beautiful day and blessings. Namaste.